Chris, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for attending today. This is going to be a great discussion. I'm really looking forward to hear everyone share their thoughts. And I really want to thank our partners and the panelists as well. And a big shout out to Chris for pulling this all together. We have over 320 registrations, which is an amazing turnout. And as Chris said, this is our first time doing this virtually. Really excited to have everyone here and looking forward to where this conversation will go. When I was doing my research and thinking about what I wanted to say here, I came across this quote from Deloitte, and it really sort of hit the essence of what I thought we would talk about today and hoped we would talk about. And one of the first things that really jumped out at me was the fact that it was spoken from the first person perspective, or written from the first person's perspective, which I think is so important to what we're talking about here. This is about our journey to work, our ability to collaborate, to provide insights, to be connected with our coworkers and people, to enhance the well-being and a sense of belonging in the workplace, in the companies that we work for, as we think about competing in the new modern age with the companies that we are working for. The backdrop that's been going on for many decades is about how we've been sort of leveraging modern technology, and that's been allowing us to squeeze more and more people into a square foot of real estate. Now, with the pandemic, obviously this number has jumped up, but my sense is that this will very quickly not only return to this level, but it'll exceed it. And that's all being driven in the backdrop of this computing capability that continues to grow at an alarming rate. And at this point, we're measuring in the trillions of operations per second. This is an extension of Moore's law, and in essence, what's been driving this phenomenon. And I look at it and say, and I brought this at the last conference, I described this as Moore's law is what's happening on the ability to squeeze a circuit chip into a smaller space. That's also allowing us to squeeze people into a smaller space. So I call that Graham's law, or more of an observation. But this is also driving an experience premium, because as we take away square footage from employees, we're impacting their experience. And an interesting thing happened in 2010 when WeWork emerged, and they were getting people into 50 square foot per person, but they were also delivering an experience, and they were able to capitalize on that experience by paying $30 in rent for space and then turning around and renting it to companies for $60 and $90 per square foot. That delta is what I would call an experience premium. And I bring up WeWork because it really capitalized on that opportunity, that point in time where technology was advanced enough to allow this to happen at the same time as delivering an experience that people enjoyed. Now, this is the kind of this experience premium exists in the corporate workplace, but hasn't yet been delivered upon. When we think about that slicing of a square foot of real estate, or sharing that square foot of real estate by more and more people, it drives the need for better experience, but it also delivers great value to the people who own buildings, as well as to the corporations that are paying for those spaces. So that allows them to invest more in the workplace, in the technologies, in the furnishings. We've seen workplaces go more from these drab cube farms to like our living room, to places that we want to hang out. And we have to invest more and more. in this experience to delight and empower employees. Now, corporate real estate is a conservative bunch, right? And for the last from whenever workplaces emerged hundreds of years ago to 2020, it was the only place to be. It was a monopoly. And health and safety, even today, the clipboard on the back of the bathroom door was good enough. And it was seen as just a necessary cost. There weren't really alternatives. And I don't think we all even believed that technology could solve our problems. But today, the work from home model is the incumbent. It's the competitor to the workplace. And so when employees think about coming back, they think about health and safety. Obviously, everyone is thinking about this. It's top of mind. And their experience, not just in the workplace, but the experience of getting to the workplace is challenging. And so corporations need to think about how to improve that experience, not just when they're in the office, but from before they get there. As I mentioned, technology and Moore's law, this question, is Moore's law dead? Well, the amount of square feet on a circuit chip is slowing down. The pace of that is slowing down, but other new processing capability is coming on board to where it's accelerating, and things like facial recognition and LiDAR and audible assistance and augmented reality. All these things are driving new opportunities to deliver better experiences, better use cases, and better data. And as I mentioned, real estate is a conservative bunch, and there's always been a resistance in the real estate industry around technology. In fact, I think as real estate leaders, we've always thought about the building itself as our job, making sure that the lights are on and the place is clean and the HVAC is working. This pandemic is driving a tipping point to help us move the needle and to sort of take advantage of the opportunities that exist. Many of the software code that we're writing, our partners here are writing code every day, trying to improve the experience and the data that's coming out of buildings and from the people who they're designed to be for. The legacy operating systems weren't designed for this, and it doesn't allow for easy employee experience. Workplace tech is not mobile generally, and it's hard to develop good user experiences at the native mobile level. And the data is incomplete. So there's a lot more to be done in this whole area. And as real estate professionals, what we need to be able to think about is, again, that journey of the employee all the way through the process, from getting the space booked and making sure they know where they're going to sit, and that, the health checks and the setting up of space, and how do they interact when they're in the workplace between virtual and in-person members of the team. I break this down into kind of your pre-game, your game time, which is when people are in the workplace, and then that post-game, which is like the debriefing and the process of analyzing what you've done and improving for the next day's game time. The experiences need to be simple, very responsive, and delightful for employees. We need to embrace mobile. That's where everyone is. And think about data models that tap into that deliver not just an experience for the user immediately, but also data on the back end. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about with our partners here today. I think a big topic is about interoperability. And it's often very hard to create a seamless experience that does everything. Because if you think about that employee's journey, there are so many little use cases that need to deliver a delightful experience along the way. It's very hard for one company to do all of it. and oftentimes trying to do all of it leaves gaps and leads to poor experiences. So we're going to talk a lot today about how do we make these systems more interoperable? How do we connect best-in-class solutions together into a seamless experience so it feels like it's one solution, but it's actually a combination of many, so that you get that experience and insight that we're all looking for. I want to thank again all of these great participants and panelists today. I look forward to everyone's insight and feedback, and I look forward to any questions that any of you may have for me.
Great. We have a few questions on the docket here. The first question that it looks like came up was on the interoperability question there. I think we're hearing a lot about like APIs and data transfers around some of the new solutions, but I'm curious where you've seen the value when it comes to insights based off of combining some of that data and in leveraging, different solutions.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak, for CrowdComfort, we built a data model that starts with interior geolocation. And with that, we combine crowdsourcing of occupant information. And so we're using a lot of different methodologies to do those two things together. And, but that method is a data model that allows us to very easily know where people are, what they want or need, and then get that right to the right people who can respond, but also to the software systems on the back end that are used to sort of manage that area. And there are many different teams within the facility management world, within the IT and safety areas in these big corporations. We focused on creating a data model that seamlessly connects those employees with those teams. And it's not just about the employee themselves. It's also about the person on the FM team or the safety team or the IT department, making it also a delightful experience for them so that it's easy, so people get an immediate response and things like that. And those are just an example of how we do it, but thinking about how do you build data models around solutions that also deliver value for people who need it, who are managing the space or just making decisions about what kind of spaces people are going to have, things like that.
And
Chris,
I was muted. As far as the return to office, with organizations that have returned already, I think we've seen in certain industries they're returning sooner. What have been kind of the big technology solutions and experience changes that you've seen be really successful?
Well, I think in terms of where we are, I think a lot of the people in corporate real estate have been thinking about the first part, the step one part I described earlier, about how do we get people into the building safely and help them find a place and get to a place where they can work. How do they schedule that with their teams? That part is still, I think there's still lots of room to improve there, and lots of opportunity and need. Everyone's still grappling with this, I think, in many ways. And that's where they are. And I think we're obviously engaging. In our world, we're focused on that game time. What do people want and need when they're actually in the building with their colleagues, things like that.
Got it. And I think there's a lot of things too. I know you mentioned it a little bit, but how are you seeing organizations start to give trust or have employees trust on a lot of the health and safety efforts they're making? I know that's something that all the facility leaders we talk to and workplace leaders we talk to ultimately focus, but what different ways have they been able to communicate that to employees?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all see, antimicrobial membranes on doorknobs and things like that. We actually, we're in a WeWork and I think WeWork purposely places a cleaning person in the space so that we see them, and that makes us feel like they're on top of their game, things like that. But there are more technology-driven ways of delivering the confidence for employees, and we've had a big focus on that, and have been creating digital cleaning maps so people can see exactly what's been cleaned where and when in real time. And that's because of the data that's driven from that, help organizations be much more efficient and actually start to understand how not only can they deliver a better experience, but do it more cost effectively.
And we have one more question, it looks like. And if anybody else has questions, go to the Q&A panel on your Zoom. The question was about data and the data of the future. Basically, what data and what questions do you see organizations answering that they didn't necessarily answer before? I know like utilization is a big deal, and things like that, but like how do you see data being used in different ways?
I think, it's interesting. And I've talked a lot with folks at HQO about how, the customer experience, employees in real estate have never been thought of as a customer, really. And because of that, there's no really good customer data about how these customers use the product, right? And in software, that's like a crazy idea, but in real estate, that's like par for the course. Like in fact, when CrowdComfort started, we had an overwhelming notion of like, what CrowdComfort was proposing was like turning the keys to the asylum over to the inmates. This idea of gathering customer feedback about the product that's being delivered is one where there's so much room for improvement and so much need and so much data to be captured, that I'm excited to see what happens, what's happening now and what's going to be happening in the future. I hear a lot from corporate real estate leaders that they're getting lots and lots of calls from technology companies, and they're having a hard time managing it. And I think that all I can say is like, be prepared for more of that, because there's more code being written, there's more opportunities being solved as we go. So.
No, and totally agree. And there's been a lot of like interesting stuff with like utilization and leasing data, bookings and desk booking and room booking and cleaning, right? Data and being able to do that on demand. So I think there's a lot of really interesting things. And to your point with the Moore's Law, is, what we do with the data is kind of the biggest expansion. Because, I think we're creating data at rates that we've never done. And so how do we actually make sense of that data is a big deal. Very cool. So I think we're run up to our time. Is there any final thoughts before we, get on to the break and then get into our next session?
No,
Eric?
let's move forward here. I'm looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Eric. And we'll, get into the break here and let Dave, Kelly, and Matt join in, and then we'll get into the next session. And so, Eric, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.